It works. Okay, it says we're live,
Okay.
y'all. Good
Hello.
morning. Happy Sunday to you. I am very sleepy this morning after my fun yesterday.
Oh, I'm always sleepy, so
But
we
you have kids. I don't have kids.
yeah, yeah, little kids.
Yeah, how old are your boys again?
Um, 4 and 5.
Oh, yeah, they're little. Like
Yeah.
kids are yeah. Hey Bree, how are you? Yeah,
Hey,
I don't know
Bree.
why I thought they were like 7 and 8. I'm not
Yeah.
sure why I
They
thought, but
look
you
they
got
look
littles.
big. They look older than they are, but yeah, they're still little.
They
Yeah.
are that is little. Hey
Yeah.
Carrie.
Hi, Carrie.
So good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. It's beautiful here in Texas. It's about 68 with clear blue skies.
Oh, nice.
And that was yesterday. It got up to I think it got up to like 86. And I
Ooh.
was showing Jaimie, I got a farmer's tan from yesterday. That's attractive. Yeah, not. But I got that whole redneck syndrome from my
Fun.
t-shirt. That's great.
Yeah.
Yes, I had a lot of fun. Hey, Rob, how are you? And hey, Dolores, thanks for coming in. I did, y'all. We went to Tammy Vintage Uprising, Texas, and a new person to me, B Avenue Thrifter. Her name is Lori.
Oh.
She's brand new. She met us there. We do a couple of 91. Carrie, no,
Yeah.
ma'am. Well, it was 86, and it was warm in spots. But we do a couple of meetups in Round Top, Texas. It's actually like Warrington. Hey, mom, that's my mom, Bella
Oh.
Rose.
Hi, Mom.
She's still clapping and coming to performances. It's great. Hi, Diane. And we went to Round Top yesterday. It's about 2 hours from me. And I was telling Jaimie, it's like fields and fields and just country full of vendors. And I took some pictures of 3 of the mid-century modern vendors just because I knew Jaimie would be like, oh my gosh.
And I was.
So these guys, one of them, the card that I got was Dearly Departed Vintage or Dearly Departed Antiques. They're on Instagram and I don't know if they're on Facebook, but I do know, no, Facebook and Instagram, not YouTube.
Interesting name.
But I thought it was cool because it's like, as people pass away, they're dearly
Right.
departed and it's their stuff. So I thought it was pretty clever.
Yeah, it
I,
is. It is a little morbid, but still,
yeah,
in like a nice way though.
it's like, oh, dearly departed, but I have your stuff. Thanks. Go resell
Hey, we
it.
both have personalized cups. I
We
just saw that.
do.
Hey.
Mine came as a gift from Michelle, Newton's Cupboard. She is so
Oh,
sweet.
nice.
This
Yeah,
was, I
she
believe,
is.
a birthday gift for me, but I thought that was super sweet. It's the only thing that's keeping me alive this morning. Um,
Same, same.
yeah, because we were out there and we got there about 10:30.
Yeah.
We didn't leave till like 5. And
Whoa.
it's all like not pasture, but pasture and then gravel road.
Yeah.
So we were just walking and pulling said cart, and we'd been looking for a lady head vase for my mom,
Mm.
and I found one, y'all, and I actually bought 2.
Oh, nice.
They were 20% off. What are you gonna do?
You buy them both.
You buy them both. But one's big, and she's gonna use that, and then one is small, and I've never seen the ones that are about this tall.
Oh yeah, those are cute.
Yeah, so I thought, well, I'll keep that one and use that like in a live sale or something.
Yeah.
So today, I took those pictures because today, actually, it's really for me, but I told Jaimie, I said, I can't be the only one that doesn't know this stuff. But Jaimie is here to talk with me and you guys about mid-century modern, which as coming new into the game, I'm more of that Victorian, the lacy stuff. My
Yeah.
great grandmother had all of that kind of tatting and crochet, and she sewed and all that. So I'm into that very flowery kind of girly girl stuff, right?
Fancy. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, no hard lines and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
when I got into the game here, I was like, MCM. I think I know what that means. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. Just the
So
opposite of everything that you like, probably.
yeah, but you get to know that it's so cool. And
Yeah.
a lot of people actually confuse it with retro,
Mhm.
like because it kind of blends. It does kind of lend itself some of the
Right.
places. But and so Jaimie, I consider one of the leading authorities on
Well,
mid-century
I
modern.
don't know about that, but I appreciate it.
Well, I mean, I've learned a lot from either you've been on chats or items that you've sold, things that you post on your Instagram, just the things that you collect in
Yeah,
general.
right.
So I
Because that's
started
what
looking at,
I'm drawn to. The way you're
yeah,
drawn to the fancy and pretty and lacy, I'm drawn to the harsh, clean
but it's
lines and that kind
actually
of
very
stuff.
clean. I
Yeah,
really like it because it's very clean.
yeah.
Now, I don't know if I could get behind some of the colors sometimes, but
Okay, okay, that's interesting. Because the colors, I'm like a bright colors, rainbow kind of person. So
yeah, that's my
it's
mom. My
colorful.
mom's like, "You need
Yeah.
to live your life through color." And I'm like, "Can it be like gray or blue and pink? That's it. Like that's all we need. Like the walls,
Yeah,
white, and pink. Period.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
Goodbye."
Well, and
But
that's a whole aesthetic on its own too. So
and my mom is very, very color. She loves all the bright colors, the
yeah,
greens, the oranges, the yellows. I mean, she loves all of those. So
yeah.
we're not really sure how I got there. We think I was good. Not sure.
Well, things
But
keep a generation. So
yeah. So I've been looking at stuff, and I know that mid-century modern, I know that we'll call them young kids today, really like that. They're very
Mhm.
drawn to that
Trendy
too.
right now. Yeah.
Yeah, it is very trendy. So I was like, okay, I need to learn. I need to bring Jaimie on, see if she is available, and let's kind of chat it up about mid-century modern. So I know almost zero about it. So tell me a little bit. Well, and everybody else. Hey, Sharon, sorry I missed. If y'all missed y'all, Dolores says I love MCM, but not always sure if I want of what I am picking up is MCM.
Right.
So we're going to talk about that. Bree says MCM is her childhood. My parents bought our house in 1960
Mhm.
and decorated accordingly.
Yeah.
So, all right, just tell me first of all the time period. I'm actually
Right.
taking notes, y'all. I'm not kidding. I have a
Good.
notepad.
Well, okay, so mid-century modern, just in the words themselves, you can hear that we're talking about a time period and a design style. Mid-century is referring to a time period, and the modern is the design style. Now, modern expanded way beyond the mid-century era. So when you're talking about just modernism, modern style, that started, I mean, there's Bauhaus was a design school, and that kind of started the modernism movement, I guess you want to call it. And that was as early as 1919. So that's more early 1900s than you would think of mid-century. And even
That is
Frank Lloyd
early.
Wright, what's that?
That is
It is
early.
early. Yeah. So the modernism movement, and there's still uh, iterations of modernism even today. So yes, and I will talk about those too. I have that in my little notes here of something to talk about because that's, kind of a pet peeve, I guess, for me is people calling things MCM and it's just completely not. But it's not
Totally.
anybody's fault, it's just misinformation. But so Frank Lloyd Wright was a big name that people know in modernism. And he was even a little early when you think of mid-century modern. He was like 30s.
Right.
So, but he also influenced like the mid-century era because his career was long. So the actual mid-century part of it is one of those kind of like hotly debated things. The era itself, some people will say it encapsulates 1930 all the way through the 70s. And they have this really broad definition of mid-century modern. I think it needs to be narrowed down a little bit personally, because that I would call that just modernism, 1930 to 1970. I do apologize. I have a cough still. It's been weeks, so I'm going to be coughing through this whole thing.
Y'all's whole family got just pummeled.
Yeah, and now Blake is sick once again. So
Oh no.
I know. Can you believe that? But so a lot of people, I think, so there's this broad category, 1930 all the way through 1970. And then some people want to shrink it down really, really tight and say it's mid 50s through the early 60s. And that's it. Anything earlier than that isn't mid-century modern. Anything later than that isn't mid-century modern. And you're just going to hear all these different opinions, you know, especially with like the hardcore collectors who are always right, you know, those people.
It's my collection, so I get to call it what I want.
Yeah. So, but I think a more general consensus, when you're just looking at history in general, you can kind of mark things off by the big major world events. So I say it's after World War II. So we're saying around 1945 through the end of the 60s. Some people want to push it into the 70s, but I'll kind of talk about how I personally don't feel like that's quite right. But end of 60s, you know, we've got Vietnam going on. There's this whole like cultural revolution going on. And then that usually affects design. That changes people's styles and tastes. And, you know, the hippies were full swing and everything. So the style changed in the late 60s. And it's really hard, of course, to say these are the clear-cut dates of something, because when you're in the era, you don't know you're in an era. You know, the people in the 50s were like, oh, look at this mid-century modern kitchen I just got. No, it was just, look at my new kitchen. So things ebbed and flowed and things slowly changed and evolved, and, you know, just like anything. So it is hard to put like clear-cut dates on stuff, but you know, I think if you find something that's modern looking and it was made in 1950s or 1960s, you're looking at mid-century modern.
Okay.
That would be the general consensus. And the other thing that I'm going to be like harping on this whole time, not everything that was made in that period, it can be considered mid-century modern.
Okay.
And not everything that's modern in design, from ever, would be considered mid-century modern. So it has to be in that time period, and it has to be a modern look for it to be considered MCM.
So it's date and design.
Exactly. Because you will find some stuff that looks modern, but it might be from the 30s or the 20s. It might be really, really old modernism, the early stages of it. And you just can't really call that MCM because it's not of the right time period.
Which is hard. That's kind of hard, like for newbies in that, because, you know, you're drawn to what you're drawn to, you know. So if you're looking at something, I always think that it looks, I always categorize it with, it's probably not right, like the Jetsons. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if it looks like something that would have been Jetsons like, then I'm like, maybe that's MCM. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. Well, I would say because and I'll talk about like all the little sort of subcategories too, but that would be like atomic style. So anything that's like spacey, space age, Jetsons, that's very that's almost always going to be MCM. And the thing that, you know, makes design happen is the stuff that's happening in the world. So in that era, we're in a space race. There's you know, we put a man on the moon. We did all of that. There's all this new technology happening post World War II and even during World War II. And so the modernism movement really started from in response to technology. It was the big designers, and, you know, usually design movements kind of start with architects and furniture designers, and then you get into all the little home decor stuff and
the style of the
fine
house,
art and fashion, and, you know, it affects everything. But I come from a interior architecture background, so I studied all of this in college from the architecture perspective. So that's kind of what I always sort of key back to. And the big architects, they started this movement mostly in response to technology. So it was kind of like, you know, the world is changing. This Victorian carved frilly kind of look doesn't match up with what
With
our
the
world
new,
is now, and the
right.
technology we have, and the metal, and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, fancy frilly lacy is not MCM. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Is MCM Kitsch, or is Kitsch leaning into tacky? Well, I'll talk about Kitsch too, because that's again another whole sort of subsect of MCM, I guess you could say. So the other thing that I wanted to mention that was like a big influence in design in the mid-century era is that a lot of women were making purchasing decisions in the homes. So the women had the purchasing power. There was a lot of wealth and prosperity, and people were wanting the latest and greatest sort of technology. And, it was like keeping up with the Joneses kind of era, especially when you're looking at like the 1950s. So people didn't want anything old fashioned. Now, I'm not saying everyone, but when we're talking about the MCM movement, having some like Victorian looking furniture may seem outdated in that era, and people started switching over to their clean line MCM furniture. And I think the best example of that is if you watched I Love Lucy. She was constantly redecorating her apartment. And in the early days of I Love Lucy, which I'm like obsessed with, her furniture style was more traditional, and she had more like carved wood things and things that were a little bit lacier,
Right.
frillier, and flowery. And then at some point, there's an episode where she just like kind of trashes everything and gets a whole new living room set, and then all of a sudden that sleek MCM stuff comes in, and Ricky gets mad at her, and it's hilarious. But
it's hilarious.
It's hilarious because the women had the purchasing power, and yet the men controlled the money. So they touched on that in a funny way. But so that was kind of trendy, we'll say, when you're seeing stuff on TV, and then everybody wants that.
Yeah, it's influencing other buyers,
Yeah.
What they see in movies and on TV is going to influence what they want to put in their
Hollywood.
home too.
Hollywood does have a lot of influence, whether you like it or not. So I think now I can just sort of start getting into like, what does it look like? And I have just a whole table of examples.
I even asked her, please bring examples because I need to know.
Like, oh yeah, I've got examples. So I'll just sort of go through sort of my notes here of what I've written down, and then I'll show you what I mean by that. So we're talking about sleek and clean lines, and you'll hear people talk about that all the time. Like, oh, this has really good mid-century modern clean lines, or I like the lines of this. And that kind of coincides with mid-century modern used a lot of geometric shapes, a lot of not as organic shapes. When you think of Art Nouveau, everything is very organic and earthy and plant-like and stuff. Mid-century modern is going to just geometry. And there's not a lot of decorative embellishments. Now that I kind of put an asterisk next to that, but there's not going to be a lot of overly adorned things. Just for the sake of adorning it. You know what I mean? If there is going to be decoration to something, it's going to be kind of the MCM's version of adornment. And minimalism, which I am not a minimalist, but minimalism was a huge movement too. Kind of the minimalism design usually used mid-century modern furniture and architecture, and it was just very sparingly used. So not all mid-century modern has to be minimalist, because the objects themselves will be shaped like mid-century modern objects, but if you got a ton of them, you're not a minimalist anymore. Right. So but when you're talking about like the high architecture or the high design kind of stuff. A lot of times in the magazines and things, you would see a very minimalist style. Now I know you started with furniture, right? You
Yes.
were into furniture. So talking about furniture specifically, they didn't want things to look heavy and very have a lot of weight to them. So
Like
that's
the
why you'll
old
see a lot
Victorian.
of those tapered, skinny legs to lift things up
Go
off the
like this.
floor. Yeah, exactly. The sort of long. Of course, I have some here, but I'm not going to pick up a chair and bring it over here.
But
But
it's more like they're either it's, I call them wooden or metal, and they have that little piece on the end. I have one piece that was somebody gave me, and very much so, totally different than anything else. And we just kind of use it right now. And then I found a matching chair, which is that design, but it's very I call it cold. I mean, cold
yeah,
may not be the word for it, but it's cold. There's no padding. There's no pretty, like fluffiness. It's not
yeah,
puffy. It's not got it has a nice, like the designs, like the furniture that I put in the pictures
yeah,
yesterday. I mean, I
yeah.
guess the fabric is colorful, but the design is not very busy. Does that make any sense?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, because I'm used to the big wooden legs that have the scroll work and all that kind of
Exactly.
stuff.
Yeah.
And these are like, well, what do you do with this? I mean, it's very hard to restore the metal pieces of
Yeah,
those
I'm
once
sure.
they rust off. But
Yeah.
most people will just know that you've touched them up. But I did notice that. I'm like, I don't even know what kind of furniture this is. I have no idea what the purpose of this piece of furniture was. And then
Yeah.
someone told me it's kind of like a television stand.
Okay.
So it's a piece of wood that goes out like this, and then there's a space, and then it has the bottom that matches it. So it kind of looks like this,
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
then it has the metal legs on it.
Like the sort of
Um,
peg, or were they
yes,
like hairpin legs?
they're not hairpin. I
Uh-huh.
do like the hairpin with
Yeah.
the thick wood on it. That I don't think would be considered MCM. That is more
That's more
industrial.
that's more of the newer.
Yeah.
One of the things people like to call MCM, or just put the hairpin legs on
Yeah, no,
everything.
these are the round like dowels that taper
Yep.
down a little
The
bit. That's what
tapered.
these
Yeah.
legs have on them, as well as the
Yeah.
chair has
Yeah.
the same thing. And they weren't together, but and I have done nothing with it because I mean I was gonna just, paint it a bright color and move on. But I think
Yeah.
that color for that wood is kind of what should be MCM, right? Not
Right.
a
Yeah.
painted wood.
Yeah, you didn't see a lot of painted furniture. It was teak wood, walnut,
Yeah.
and even that is wood that doesn't have when you think of like oak wood grain, it's not
Yes.
a very grainy wood. So even
Yeah.
the wood texture itself is more sleek and flat. But those tapered legs, that was actually one of the things when I was first getting into this. And I mean, I was in high school and starting to notice, my taste developing, I guess, and just what I was drawn to furniture wise. And I would always say, like, oh, look, that's got those legs that I like, because it had tapered legs. But what that was they kind of just, and it almost makes you uncomfortable sometimes because the legs look like they could snap off in any second.
Yes.
It's like how are those skinny little legs holding up that big heavy piece of furniture? But that was sort of the point of wanting to just visually lighten everything up, make things look like they're lighter than they actually are. Because if it's on these skinny little tapered legs, this isn't a big, heavy, weighty, visually heavy piece of furniture. So that is like a element that you'll see, a design element in mid-century modern design. And even I'll show you, I've got some examples of even how they sort of wanted to lighten up the shapes of things, that like this cat that you see behind me, which I'll show in a second. So even in the kitsch side, you'll see that sort of making things visually lighter was a design element that they used. Let's see, let me get back to my notes here. Some other things, mixtures of natural earthy textures and wood, stone with man-made. So you got your metals, your glass, mixing those textures was something that you see a lot in mid-century modern, especially in architecture, but even in the way people decorated too. And then bringing the outside in, that's a big architecture. Sorry, there's a plane going by, so if you hear that, it's very loud over here real quick. In architecture, you had a lot of entire walls made of glass, so you could see the outside.
Right,
And then
right.
right inside the glass, there would be stone and indoor plants to kind of make it seem like the outside has just sort of melded right into the house, you know. So those sort of, they did use the earthy sort of natural textures and plants and things, but they used it in a very specific way. You're not going to see like tons of bouquets of flowers all over a house or something,
Right.
like, you know what I mean? Like
greenery maybe. And so like is it the elephant ear? What is the big
I know what
plant?
I'm
It's
not a
really
plant person,
simple
but
stuff, but it's
yeah.
like the simple, and it almost has the same lines to it. They might be indoors in that thing. It's because I was looking at some magazines and stuff.
Even the plants, they wouldn't pick overly frilly plants. The plants would be one big palm leaf or something in a pot, you know. So everything was just very getting back to those clean lines. And then the last thing would be the colors to talk about. And you're already talking about those vibrant, bright, sort of like turquoise and
yellow,
orange,
green,
and yellow, the bright colors. But then also there was a whole, especially in architecture, there was a whole bunch of muted tones. You'll have all your wood tones, your stone tones. And a lot of times a home, or especially in like the really sort of fancy high design, the big name architects, like I went to Palm Springs recently and did an architecture tour, like a bus tour.
Oh, I bet that was fun.
And it was super fun. And the stuff they were showing was a lot more of the like celebrity homes and like the really high design, the really expensive upper level of design in that era. You're not seeing as much of those bright pops of color. Everything was very muted, and it's sort of like the minimalism. Like even the colors were minimalist.
Right.
But then, you know, all the way in the opposite direction, you've got your bright turquoise, which is what I am always drawn to. The turquoise and the pink and yellow and red. So there was kind of both things going on. And I think a lot of the times you would see the home itself would be the wood and sort of the muted tones, the stone, and then they're going to have a bright turquoise couch, you know, or like one of those ones that you saw at Round Top, like wood.
They were so cool.
And then bright orange fabric on it or something like that, you know? So I want to show you some fun stuff now.
Okay. So when I think of the turquoise with that muted tone, I kind of think of that atomic, what is it Franciscan atomic? I don't think that's the right word. It's the atomic pattern. Yeah, the starburst.
Yeah.
I found one saucer plate and somebody was like, always pick that up, whether you find it, whatever. Now, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. It's just sitting over there. But when I think about
me.
I hate to tell you how much I paid for that. Maybe
I don't want to
25 cents.
Oh my God.
It was a saucer, and I think it was Michelle at Newton's Cover was like, if you find that, and Christine, they were like, you know, start getting that, because I don't do YouTube or Etsy or anything. But they were like, these are kind of replacement pieces.
Yeah.
And that had no chips, no cracks or anything on it. And I just found the one. And I was like, well, I guess I'll pick it up because it's like 25 cents, you know. I guess it was on 75% off of $1 or something.
Oh my God.
At Goodwill, I found one, but it's just one. And I thought, well, who's going to want just one saucer? It's an actual saucer because it has the divot in the middle. But yes, Michelle's going, yes, I told you. So I listened, Michelle, but I just found it. But when you were talking about the colors, it's like a brownish cream color. Yeah. I mean, it's really light. And then it has the black, but then it has the turquoise in there. And then it might have either some yellow or some. I'll get it.
Yeah.
To show you. Because it has literally, I have had it maybe a year and a half.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, sitting right there. But I mean, what do you do with one saucer?
Yeah, and there's not a ton of value in just one saucer. I would at least hang on to it till you find a cup to go with it.
Well, people were saying that, a lot of people with that aesthetic might just put a plant on it or,
Sure.
use it for an
Definitely.
underplate or something. But I
Yeah.
picked it up because it was the first time I'd ever seen it. I had heard about it so much. I'd
Yeah.
seen pictures of it, and I had never, ever seen it in
And
real
it's hard to
life.
find. I mean, it's because it's so highly collectible. I have seen it a few times now, especially in antique stores, but it's so far out of my budget that I would never be able to get a whole set all at once, So I do look for like little pieces at a time. Or like Blake gifted me a platter for Christmas. So
Oh,
it's one of those things where it's like you get the collectors sometimes, unless you can just go spend $3,000 on a full set of something, you're gonna be buying them little
dishes?
pieces. Right, exactly. Like
I don't
no,
spend $3,000 on clothes, automobiles, or anything.
no, right. Same. So I'm looking for one little piece at a time is what it comes down to,
And
But
we did see some, like we saw one place that had a few like odds and ends. Now their piece of this I was like, I have this. I have this thing. I actually say it, I think, when I videoed or said it to Tammy. And I was like, but it had a chip on the bottom under piece, and
yeah.
it was like $4 for the saucer. And I was like, I paid 25 cents for mine.
And $4 is still even a really good price.
And I was like, that was $4. I paid 25 cents for mine at Goodwill.
And yours isn't chipped.
Mine isn't chipped. So yeah.
Okay, so
All right,
here's
so
the first
show me
thing.
what you got.
Here's the first thing I'm going to show. And this is just a very simple vase. And when we're talking about the design elements I was talking about for mid-century modern, it's sleek. There's not a lot going on to it. And this is probably the most minimalist thing that I pulled too, because my personal style, I tend to lean towards the kitsch. So
it's fun.
Yeah. Furniture and stuff, I'll go just more clean lines and sleek, but then I want to decorate all of my silly stuff all over it. But so I'll show you the texture up close. This sort of speckled texture in pottery was extremely popular at that time. And even see the bottom doesn't have, it's not Van Briggle. I have yet to identify what this piece is. That's why it's just.
So is that glazed and smooth, or is there a texture to that?
It's textured. It is textured. This is pottery though. This isn't a ceramic. This was actually like, I believe, like wheel turned, because it's a little bit wonky.
Mm-hmm.
It's like not completely perfect, but they tried.
Good job.
They did a good job. But yeah, it's like a matte glaze on there.
Yeah.
And it does have a little bit of texture to it. But we've got an hourglass shape. So there's your geometry. It's minimalist. Even though it's this blue color, this turquoise, it's still muted. This isn't a bright turquoise. So we've got the muted colors, and this sort of skinniness, this tapered hourglass shape was very prevalent. It adds to the lightness to it. So it doesn't seem, it's not very bulbous. It's not heavy looking. It's almost, like a robin color. Yeah. It's almost dainty in a way. It's got a lightness to it because it gets so skinny right here. So it's not a big, weighty, heavy piece. And pretty much anytime you see something that's an hourglass shape of that time period, it's going to be mid-century modern. It just, that's a very common shape that you'll see. Now, because I haven't identified this piece, I haven't found the maker of it, I'm assuming it's mid-century modern, but just because of the color is right, the shape is right, but I don't know when it was made exactly. Carafe, no, it's a vase for sure. It's a vase, and it's not ceramic or porcelain.
Pottery.
It's pottery. Yeah. So, and it's glazed inside too, which you might not be able to tell. And it's a little chippy too. So it's one of those things where I got it and then I ended up just keeping it. Let's see, what should I do the next thing? Hold on 1 second. Okay. So this was the example I wanted to bring for the mixing of textures and the mixture of natural elements if I can get the cord off here, and sort of man-made. So we've got wood and glass and metal on this lamp here.
Okay, so that reminds me, I was born 71. I'm old, but I was born in 71. And so that's kind of some of the stuff that was in the house. If my mom's still watching, I feel like it's in the pictures from Famosa Mom. But so to me, I'm thinking, is that 70s or is that mid-century modern? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it was probably from the mid-century era.
And they just did
in the
an
house for a
update.
while. Yeah.
Yeah.
It had been there for a while. So as long as it like, because a lot of people think of that like, oh, I had that in my house in the 70s, or some people have like Art Deco style, like, oh, well, we had Art Deco chairs in our house in the 50s. It's like, well, they were probably still from the 30s. They were just still there in the 50s, but that's
the hand-me-downs that you just had to have because you didn't have any furniture, right?
Right.
I'm not opposed to that.
That does happen a lot. But, and again, like I said, stuff sort of slowly went out of style and changed too. So that, especially that sort of end date of when did mid-century modern stop, that one I think is the most sort of debated. It just sort of kept mutating and changing.
And there's no real
there's no
real
date
that's cut off.
It just everyone hated MCM and it completely changed to something else because it very gradually changed to other
things. Morphed into the next trend.
Right. So here we have a shade that's a very natural texture, muted, just tan. And then you've got the natural wood, and this is probably walnut, I think. And again, so not a lot of wood grain. The shape of it is very sleek. And then here's the glass part and then metal at the bottom here. So here's like your man-made looking elements and your sort of natural earthy elements. And what's interesting about this one, and is a good example, is this embellishment.
Right. That's what I was going to say. That's kind of what draws me to maybe considering it.
And, a lot of, I mentioned there wasn't a lot of decorative embellishments. Well, this is what it would be. So maybe they were going for a leaf or a plant of some sort, but you see how it's so stylized into very simple geometric shapes.
Right.
You're not having these like crazy climbing vines with lots of frilly leaves and flowers and stuff. Even the embellishment is going to be more
geometrical, purposeful,
geometric, and just simple. And you did see a lot of gold too. That would be another sort of thing that's just sort of a gold painting on top. I like the pattern on it too. Yeah.
Is that like the gold gilding? Is that's on like glass, like barware?
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. So there's your mixing of textures. And then overall, there's no color here. This is all just muted.
I like it.
I know. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you know what? You can change your throw pillows, but that's cheaper than changing your furniture.
Right.
So you can put a pop of color here and there.
And I feel like a lot of, when you think of just the real homes in that time period, I think a lot of people did decorate that way. You look at the example of the high architecture and the snooty kind of stuff, when it translates into a real home, more people decorated more realistically and not so over the top crazy. When you see the stuff in the magazines, the designer homes and stuff like that of the time, they are over the top, some of them. But then when you go to a real home that was in 1960, people would have maybe a turquoise chair, but then everything else is going to be sort of browns and earth tones and stuff like that,
because that's cheaper than trying to replace it all.
And even though it was a time of prosperity, not everyone was completely redoing their whole house every 5 years or something, so
y'all are lucky that I when something breaks is when I maybe replace it, or did I have something in storage that, like, is there a chair? I've got a captain's chair over there now that I was just like, that chair is no good anymore. Of course, the fabric's old. We have to get rid of it. Just put a captain's chair there. You'll be fine. It doesn't match anything. Absolutely not. My house is such a project piece, but it is what it is. Yeah, it works.
So here's similar.
Now that's really cool.
Yeah, and you can kind of tell right away the
very
line.
Space-like to me.
Spacey, atomic looking, and there's that sort of skinniness, tapered. Like, we're getting very uncomfortable here because this is just so skinny. How is this going to hold up this big, heavy, weighted?
That one little peg. Yeah.
So there was a lot of that, a lot of like heavy stuff, but balanced out by skinny little things. So this is just a barometer and a thermometer. And again, the wood is right.
I'm going to try to change so they may be able to
see a little better.
What is that? I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. Y'all don't get excited.
So yeah, again, there's the wood tone is probably a walnut. And then you've got your metals, which this is kind of destroyed. So the metal is pretty in bad shape here, but the metal and the glass, and then it's even got this, tiny little, I don't know what that would even be for, but it's just decorative, I guess. And there you go. So the shape more than anything, but then again, you've got the mix of metals and natural. A lot of wood with metal and glass in mid-century modern.
And I mean, I think it's really cool, but it's just, I'm like really girly.
It's probably plain to you.
Yeah, I'm like, put a ribbon on it.
Yeah.
Put some berries or something on there for Christmas. It'll be fine.
Yeah. I understand. And that's just different aesthetics. Everybody just likes
put the
things.
colors with stuff like that. So like that's in a house, but then you have like those colors that are popping off in the greenery and everything. The whole thing together looks really great.
Yeah.
You see that one piece, that would probably be something I'd go, oh, so-and-so would like that, or that's totally Jaimie's vibe, and pass it right over. And my hope is that I will learn enough to like stop and take a look at it, even though it's not what I would put in personal my home.
Place. Right.
Because there is, Lovey's going in and out, because that is a design favorite of a lot of people. So my hope is that by having the chat, me and everybody else will be able to kind of look at things a little bit differently, be able to speak about them a little bit more intelligently than we do, and then not pass them up.
Yeah. And because these things, if it is trendy, and I feel like mid-century modern kind of always has a following, it's something that doesn't ever really completely go out of style. And there's value there. So from a reseller perspective, it's usually good to pick up mid-century modern stuff, especially if you're finding it for 25 cents at Goodwill. It's important to pick it up because you will definitely make some good money on it.
I showed her a couple of pieces that I'm going to show y'all and told her how much. She's like, I don't want to know anything else.
It's like, you paid how much? So here's a piece that's kind of interesting because I needed to show some glass because I'm kind of a swung vase person. So the shape of this is what made me think mid-century modern, because you've got it's kind of an hourglass. It's almost an hourglass, but you've got sort of a triangular shape, and then the round, and then the skinny cylinder at the top. But I have still not been able to identify who made this. So I can't really speak. It may be more 70s, maybe a little bit of a later piece.
But it still meshes well.
But it works, and it's got the same vibe, So when you're just looking for stuff, if you're picking or whatever, you see something like this out in the wild, it's got the look, it's got the lines, and it's glass, and it's not etched glass. There's no carving to the glass. It has kind of an optic thing going on, but still that's geometric, this sort of banding in it.
Right.
So it's not
a little faceted too.
Was
It's
that?
because that banding in it makes it almost faceted like too. So
Yeah. And it's still just more geometry on it. And that's as fancy as they went with it to adorn it, I guess you would say.
so is the
Um,
swung vase of the mid-century design, or would you say that that is just a glass design?
the swung, it's very popular with mid-century collectors right now, but I don't know how popular it would have been in the actual era, especially to collect tons of them, like the way I have just a big collection rainbow of
Right.
every color. I don't think that would have been what they meant for
Yeah,
people
because
to
it
be
would
doing.
not. It was more than a touch of color.
It's a
It's
lot.
a lot
Yeah.
of
So
color.
you would have seen maybe one of those really big ones on a fireplace hearth or something. Now people are going kind of a little crazy and wanting to collect every single one they ever see. So
No, swung base is not something that I see here in
okay,
Texas often at all.
interesting.
It's really not. But we're not a big glass. There's a lot of
Okay,
wood, there's a lot of
yeah.
metal over here. And Dee, the Southern Vintage Picker, asked me about MCM in Texas. And I'm going to honestly say I've probably seen it and unable to identify it, or because it's not something that I'm drawn to, I didn't take the time
You don't notice it
to
as
to
much.
look
Yeah,
at it. And
yeah,
now I have really been purposeful in looking at things that are just outside of my design preference.
right.
And color palette too. Color palette is another one for me. I'm all about the blues, the grays, the black, and maybe throw in a pink and white in there. But I have
Yeah,
recently been picking up things that has a lot more color in it. And I mean, it's not going to match the house per se, but it sure is selling well.
yeah,
In my booth and at the shows, it's selling very well. So I kind
yeah.
of have to remember that as a reseller, that when I'm shopping, I'm not really shopping for myself, supposedly.
Right. That's hard though, and I do that too. And I think as I've been watching more YouTube and other resellers and things and see
Hmm.
what is popular with them, there's a lot of stuff that was not on my radar at all
Right.
because don't have it in my own house, and then now I'll notice it. Even if I don't pick it up or if I don't know what it's worth just off
Yeah.
the top of my head to be able to take that risk, I'll at least notice it and be like, oh, I saw so and so sold that and it sold for a good amount of money. And, maybe I should look into that later at
Yeah,
some
I think
point.
watching that's kind of how I got interested in the mid-century modern, seeing your post on Instagram first and then watching some of those amazing estate sale places, and then you went
Yeah.
to the grand thing that's on my list of that flea market out there. So and then seeing what you guys were picking up, I was like,
Yeah.
I even said to Lovey, I said I would have never even probably I'd have been like, oh, so and so likes it, but I'd have never stopped to really pick it up, look at the texture, look at the weight, look at the
Yeah.
design of it much. And Carrie's right. We get a lot of silver plate. We call it like a Mexican silver, but it's really like a pewter.
Uh-huh.
We get a lot of that here too. So, I mean, watching TV shows, I'm an Andy Griffith girl. So that's kind of my era that I would should
Yeah.
have probably been born in. But it's a lot of the bigger wooden furniture pieces of that, and they started kind of getting into the sleek but not as much. But it's a good
Yeah.
idea to watch other people. That's what's so good about YouTube, is that you
Definitely.
really learn
Yeah. Yep.
just by watching.
I've learned so much since I've just started doing YouTube videos myself because then you're researching to
Hmm.
do this kind of stuff, but then also just watching others, and it's interesting to me to see what is in other parts of the country too. What is uh hard to find in other parts of the country, and areas of the country where like mid-century modern stuff out here is very expensive for the most part.
Yeah.
I find most of it, if I can pick it up, I find most of it at estate sales.
Cute.
And which, yeah, that makes
I
sense.
saw a ton of those at Round Top.
I would expect that. And, Blake and I have done road trips and we've gone all over in the middle parts of the country. His grandma lives in Iowa. And so we're familiar with farmland too, And there's a lot of farmland in California too, which a lot of people don't think of. But so, we get our rusty old tractor every now and then out here.
I think when we think of California, we think of that Hollywood,
Yeah.
regal, the glass house on the top of the hill, and
Yeah.
it's down. That's kind of what we think of over here. And when people,
Yeah.
think of Texas, it is all longhorns, and which is
Right.
a lot. I mean, I
Yeah.
saw a lot of skulls yesterday and a lot of rusty tractor parts for sure.
That's funny. Yeah, and not everyone lives that way. It's just the stereotype of the state in general. And you wouldn't know that there's so much agriculture in California unless you've been here or know somebody or driven through it. So it's just funny that way. And not everybody likes that style. So not everyone in Texas likes farmhouse. Not everyone in California likes mid-century modern. So there's a little bit of everything everywhere, I think.
Yeah, we actually have a growing number of people who are liking the MCM. So they're kind of going away from that cottage farmhouse chic, which was really big out here. And now they're going into, it's morphing, it's changing. It's kind of what's trending everywhere else as well. So we are seeing that, which is why, it's time to start looking. I needed to be knowledgeable before I started looking.
Yeah. Yeah. And that does happen where things swing dramatically from one style to another. And I think it's just people get sick of it. Like I'm looking at my house, I'm sick of everything. I want to do something completely different. And the overall
garage sale.
Yeah, the trends start to swing back and forth like that. Here's another piece that I'll show you.
Now, see, I like those colors. Those are great.
This is one of my favorites. I just got this. I actually got it on eBay just because I wanted it. Because I just liked it. Turquoise is my favorite color. So anything that's turquoise, I'm just like a moth to a flame. But so this is maybe more of a decorative piece. And this is, art pottery. So when you start getting into just sort of art for art's sake, you're going to get more things that are a little bit more fanciful, a little bit more decorative, but still, this leaf design on there. That's a very stylized leaf. That doesn't look like a real leaf. It's not a real vine climbing up, and it's still very geometric. So just because
it's busy.
What's that?
Not too busy.
It's not too busy. And so saying, well, they didn't use a lot of decorative elements. Well, this is still decorative.
Yeah, but it's not, I mean, it's like a little teeny bit.
Right.
You made an effort with the squiggle and a few leaves.
The overall shape is not, I mean, it is very clean lines.
Yes,
very. It's not, the overall shape of it is not decorative. It's not carved. It's not lacy in any way. So
yeah, I really like it.
Thank you. I do too. And then I'll show you some barware, because barware is a huge thing, in mid.
It's actually really, I mean, I didn't know barware was popular, and I found a set. I will not tell you about it, but it was a set of 6 glasses, no dishwasher damage. It was a black and silver in the case, in the metal case. Now the case was it had a little wear to it,
like
or whatever.
Like a carrier kind of.
Yeah. Like a caddy. Sorry.
Caddy,
like a metal caddy, but it had 6 glasses. They were the black and the silver. Very little damage on that. I told Michelle and Christine, I'm really going to take a chance on this because this is like $5.99. No. And I barely even got it home. I think I don't know if I did a haul on it. I even got it to a haul, and a friend of mine here said, I'm coming to pick that up. I don't know how much it is. And I was like, me either. So I think I sold it for like $30, the whole thing.
That's still I'm sure a huge deal.
Yeah.
Well, so here's a like martini pitcher, right? So again, this is the same thing. The overall shape of the glass itself, very geometric, not a lot going on. Even the handle is just very like sleek and minimalist. But this has a lot more gold and sort of adornment, and it's got this sort of spongy gold texture all the way around. So this is getting into sort of a little bit of a different style, almost a Hollywood Regency style, which is sort of a subsect of mid-century modern. It's kind of, Hollywood Regency is kind of mid-century modern mixed with classical, like Grecian or Roman and sculptures, and especially when you're talking about architecture. There's a lot of black and white and gold in Hollywood Regency. And so that's what you're kind of seeing here. But again, like look at the birds at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Those are very geometric birds. I mean, there's no bird that actually looks like that. And
Sorry.
oh, thank you. Hi, Blake. I'm getting a delivery here.
That was nice.
So yeah, and even the clock, the way the clock is very stylized. So just because there's kind of a lot going on here, even though it's not a lot necessarily to some people, it's still definitely mid-century modern and would still fit in with like the mid-century modern barware and that sort of overall aesthetic. They would get more little things like this would get more decorative. Well, yeah, Carrie, this is a Georges Briard. That's the artist that there's some artists, especially for barware and home decor, certain artists would put their patterns on like the blanks. So this would have been just sort of a blank glass picture, and then his design team or himself would put this artwork on it. So when it comes to artwork, you're going to see a lot more fancy,
right?
You know, more of the fancy. It's the architecture and the overall shapes of things are going to be more simple and minimalist.
Yeah, that basement, that's a dream. Of course, we don't have those here. But that's a dream. And Carrie said that's why that's her jam.
Yeah, it would be. You're drawn to Briard. I am too. So let's see. I started to talk about Hollywood Regency a little bit, so we'll start getting into some of these other like subcategories of MCM. And the big one that I am drawn to a lot and that I collect would be the kitsch, the mid-century modern kitsch.
Now, see that I like that because it's fun.
It's fun, exactly. It's not so like uppity and formal, you know.
It's like don't touch anything. This is my MCM house. Well, what can I play with?
Right, exactly. So here's some cats. These cats are a little bit beat up, but these are from just my own collection here. So obviously cats aren't really shaped like this in real life.
Well, fancy ones are in Disney.
These are like, it kind of reminds me of the Siamese cats from Lady and the Tramp.
Yeah, Disney.
Yeah, from Disney. So when you get into the kitsch, you're going to get things that are cutesy. Yeah, I'm bringing out the cats. Look out, everybody. Things are going to be more cutesy. They're going to be more, and they're still going to be stylized. So obviously this is not a realistic looking cat. These cats have very long necks, very long sort of curvy tails.
They're sleek. They're thin cats. They're not fluffy cats.
And it's like they have taken a cat and made it geometric somehow. You know what I mean? So the ears are just sort of pure straight triangles.
Right.
Again, you've got this sort of tapered skinniness in the necks that's giving it more of a visually lighter look. It's not a big, round, fat, fluffy cat. It's a sleek, skinny necked cat. And this poor thing is just pulverized, broken, been glued back together. But
now Tammy found a wooden one. I was with Tammy, like I told you yesterday at Round Top. We were passing a booth. I did not see it. She goes, oh, wait, there's a cat. And I'm like, what I saw was the wild boar with the curly wig and the cowboy hat on. That's what I saw. She saw in the back a front, and he was turned around. The cat was turned around. It was a wooden cat with that same design, an MCM wooden cat. And she goes, I see an MCM cat over there. And I'm like, I didn't even see the cat first. I'm more perplexed about the wild boar with the wig on. But she saw it. Now, I don't know if she ever got it because we never could find the vendor. We
Oh,
know he had been
yeah.
back because there was a cold beer sitting there. But
Well,
and the
maybe
cat
that's
was still
why.
sitting there. So that design, now I come to understand that what I call the tall Siamese, the
Yeah.
fancy Siamese cat.
Yeah.
I kind of clock that with MCM now.
Yeah. Yep. And it's just funny how your eye goes to certain things.
It
You
was
know.
a hog with a wig. I mean, what are you
Well, I
gonna
think
do?
I would go to that too. That sounds pretty dramatic. Okay, so here's another cat.
See, I love that. That's
And
fun.
this one's even more stylized and more skinny neck and longer, skinnier tail and more geometric. And this is probably more 70s too, which is interesting because this sort of pebble art, maybe late 60s, but this is one of those kits that you would put together.
Oh, I thought it was yarn.
No, it's those pebbles,
Oh,
stone. So here,
it
I'll
is
get it real close.
fancy.
So this is more, like I said, things start evolving. And as you get into the late 60s and 70s, things started getting even more over the top, we're going to say. So they're taking the mid-century modern skinny little cats, but they have, yes, this is the one that Aaron gave to me, Carrie. They're making even more dramatic, and you started to see, like, you think of 70s, the colors got a lot brighter and a lot more people were using these bright colors in their homes. It was becoming more common. And yeah, gravel art. Yeah, that was the term I was looking for, not pebble art. And so this is probably getting into the later end of mid-century modern, but I think a lot of people would notice it and say, oh, look at that MCM cat. And I would too. I definitely would say that this is totally MCM. And it's so kitschy because this is not, this has a lot of personality. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, the
You're not
colors
going to
are
see this
still.
hanging in a museum.
Yeah, it's not as staunch.
Right. It's not formal. It's not stuffy. It's fun. And so that's kind of the stuff that I'm more drawn to. Just
Yeah,
myself.
so this is what I saw.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think that would draw my attention too.
That's what I saw. She saw a cat totally on the other side that was shaking that. And I was like, I didn't even see the cat. I couldn't even see that far back in there. And she goes, there's a cat back there. So her eye is so drawn to what she favors.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that probably a lot of people are just like that.
That just kind of threw me. I mean, I was like, who can
look at I would think I would get distracted by
my retinas are burned.
Okay, and then here's the last little kitschy thing I'll show. This is Holt Howard. I'll just show one.
So is Holt Howard one of the designers or makers in that MCM era?
Yes.
He didn't do before or after. That's just his jam. Like, was it famous for after? I mean, I'm sure people always loved it, but that design style.
I'd say the majority of his stuff was made in the 50s and 60s.
Okay.
I don't know when it ended, and I know it kind of had like a 2000s resurgence too.
Right.
I think it's like Holt Howard 2000 or something like that. I haven't come across any of it, so I'm not totally sure, but the majority of the stuff, especially the stuff in this style, was, I think these are from like 1958 or something around there. So this is the pixie wear. And again, like, it doesn't get any kitschier than that.
That's super cute.
With these faces and things on it. But, even the colors, we've got just pink and black, pretty much. I know, right? I wish I had more of it, but I pulled out all my good stuff for this show. The shape of it, again, the necks are super skinny.
Yeah.
It's very geometric. It's not overly frilly. Even the shape of the handle is just very skinny and tapered. And, it's very stylized. But when you get into the kitsch, it's going to be more over the top stylized, more cartoony, things with faces,
So are those salt and pepper shakers?
Yeah.
Oh, those are
Your
cute.
little holes right there. So shake them like that.
Now that is cute.
Yeah. And so then getting away from Kitsch, I sort of touched on the atomic. That's the other one that's a really big sort of subsect of mid-century modern. And that was the influence from, the Apollo program and all of the
Right.
space travel. People were really obsessed and fascinated with space travel. There was a ton of science fiction was the
Mhm.
um, TV and book sort of genre that became really popular because everyone was
Twilight
just sort of
Zone.
fascinated with it. So you're going to find things. Now, I don't know if this is of the right um, era, if this was actually made in the mid-century era. So I'm going to hair off of it. But it's the right look for
Oh,
atomic.
wow.
So Katie, Vintage and Vinyl, she has the same pin, and I fell in love with it because it's just, it's a starburst. So
That
I
is beautiful.
I love it. And she actually tipped me off that this one was on eBay for like a really low price, and so I jumped on it and I bought it because I wanted one for myself. But um, again, we've got a little more going on. This isn't super minimalist by any means because it's got all those different color stones. But then the shape of it is a starburst. It almost
Right.
looks like I don't know, a constellation exploding or something, like exploding out of the middle. And so things with this starburst shape um, were really, really big, like starburst clocks, which I wish I had one to show you, but I don't have one. It's something on my list of something Blake and I are looking for to find a starburst clock.
Well, now that I
Um,
know, I can probably look for one here.
yeah, you'll get it for 50 cents at Goodwill.
No,
Thanks.
but if I did, I'd send it to you, bro. I'll be like,
Well,
you don't even want to know. Don't ask here.
I'm jealous. And so here's this is a book. This is a California reader, a teacher's book.
Right.
I forget, it's like poetry or something. But even the cover of
Basil.
this,
It's a basil reader kind of thing.
yeah. It's got a rocket on it. And they
So
called it a board.
I actually see that kind of stuff a good bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, I'm like, it's so Twilight Zone,
Yes.
Star Trek, and all
Yes.
of and that is totally not my, and I'm just like, yeah, yeah. I actually have a
Yeah.
pin. When you showed that
Jetsons.
pin, I have a huge gold, and it looks like almost like a check mark, but it looks like the check that is on the shirt, except I think Star Trek, it kind of swerves a little bit. This
Okay.
is a
Yeah.
very sleek line. It's gold and it's about this big, and it
Yeah.
literally looks just like this. It's a gold check mark. It's a brooch. I got it
Yeah.
from my friend, but I was like, kind of Star Trek. You put it to the side.
And then there's going to be other people who are like, gimme, gimme, gimme.
Right.
So again, very space, even the font is very sort of space era MCM. It's got all the little
Right.
starbursts on the drawing. The inside isn't so much. The inside is kind of more, I mean, just sort of what you would expect for any kind of
Basil.
50s,
Yeah.
50s, 60s sort of reader book. But the cover of it, and then here's the back, this would be an atomic sort of artwork on here. And I think that's all the atomic stuff that I pulled because yeah, it is. It is. So then the other thing would be as we start getting out of the true sort of center of the century, the 50s, 60s, and we start pushing into the 70s, that's when things, I call it turns from mid-century modern to more just mod. And
Yeah.
or your really it was postmodern is what the actual design style would have been called. And here's a magazine. This is from 1967. So we're kind of in a transition here from I'm going to have to stand up to show this, from mid-century modern, and we're starting to push more into the mod and postmodernism. And you can see this interior here.
Right.
And the furniture itself, you're looking at a lot of the mid-century modern shapes. You've got the, let's see if I can do this, sort of the tapered legs on the sofa. Right. But then when you look at the overall color palette, this is a bright room. Decor became more colorful as we got color TV. I would assume that would be a big influence on it. And so the whole room is almost glowing orange because it's just, everything is so bright, especially if you can see the rug. You're starting to get into these pop art, kind of. Think of like the Andy Warhol.
Yeah.
Colors, the pop art. You're still seeing the geometric shapes of mid-century modern, but it's starting to just become a little more dramatic, a little more over the top. Like now everything is orange.
A lot of hippie-ish.
Yeah, it's not like orange pillows or maybe just an orange sofa. Now it's like, we're going to do the whole room in orange. And it becomes more, it becomes just more,
a bit much.
A little more dramatic, but also a little more whimsical in a way. By having an entire room of orange is going to be, it's just a little more over the top, I guess.
So I see it as going from high structure to not so much structure, like it's just, when you think, I'm an educator, so you think, okay, you have this structure, to no structure, that we're out of control, but you're kind of, when everything is so in that same palette or close to that, the spectrum of that color palette, that's a lot in one space.
Right. And you think of how there was so many sort of hard surfaces. Everything was, say, stone flooring. And then as you get into the 70s, we've got shag carpet. So it's going like completely the opposite direction. Not only are we going to carpet everything, but we're going to make the carpet this long and make it super fluffy. So
that's kind of what she's talking about, Brian, is that that's Thrifty City to me. I call him Thrifty City. It's Pam's husband, but she's talking about where you went from that, what I call cold, staunch, like kind of earth tone and where you're a mixture, getting a real good mixture, to adding tons of color and it being more whimsical than that sleek line. That's mid-century versus mid-century modern. You start going into the modern part of it where it becomes a little bit more, right? Isn't that what I heard you say?
Yeah, and here's a good example that we can show now. So this is the what are we in? 1960, a Sears catalog, right? So what is
you were going through those.
Yeah, so this is one that I went through on my channel. We went through the whole book. And it's fun. It's funny. A lot of it is hilarious because it's just so, politically incorrect and stuff now. But what better example of what people were actually having in their home than the Sears catalog? This is like
where they were buying it. It was the eBay of the day.
Century, taking this era, 1960, this was the stuff that was available, and this is the stuff people were buying for their home. So we're not talking about the high design, the architecture where it's, a stone room with a wood wall and one flower plant in the middle of the room. This is the real life example. And so, like I was saying, not everything that was made in this mid-century era was mid-century modern. So just on this one page, we have two examples. Okay, so here's a dining set up here that is definitely more clean lines, more mid-century modern, not a whole lot going on, skinny little legs. And then right down here, we've got a traditional set, with turned wood legs and arms on the furniture. And this was brand new, and this was brand new too. And they're right next to each other. So two completely different design styles. They would both be considered mid-century because we are in the mid-century era. This is 1960, but this one is mid-century modern up here on top. And this one would be more traditional. And even look at the curtains they have drawn in the background are your more sort of frilly. And so different people just like different styles. So, and then I'll show this too, because there's a furniture set. I mean, that's extremely mid-century modern right there. It's, to me, I would say that's too modern it doesn't even look comfortable anymore, you know?
Right.
And again, like the skinny legs.
You can't take a nap on that.
But then, you know, you've got sort of a little leather recliner underneath. So just because it was in 1960 does not mean that it was mid-century modern. And let's see, I've got another.
Yeah, Antiques Agenda said there was a lot of styles in homes in the mid-century, French provisional, like my grandma, colonial, federal as well as a modern design.
And I'll say the colonial was popular, and it was like 60s, 70s. It became very popular. And in a lot of the sort of, I'll say snobby mid-century modern collectors groups, they refer to it as coloniawful. Because it's not their style, so they call it. Whenever I hear colonial, I have a hard time not hearing people call it coloniawful, because it's just the exact opposite. You know, it's turned wood.
Yeah.
You know, it's much more decorative and fanciful, and
lots of detail in the leg, lots of movement in the leg.
Yeah.
Lots of that trim, like that French provisional has that trim that goes all the way around it. That's very difficult to flip, by the way, but very time consuming. I did it, but I won't ever do another piece. Let me just say that.
Yeah. And then, so here's another example of mid-century modern. Not a lot going on. Even the pulls and knobs are just
very clean, straight,
sleek lines. It's got the tapered legs. And then the very next page over, this is a lot more bulky. It's heavier visually. It's sitting straight on the ground. It's probably like oak or some sort of knotty pine or something.
Yeah, I have a piece right now that I'm doing that is just like that dresser, except all of them have those rectangular wooden knobs. They were made knobs on them, so I'm trying to most of it has been I guess dry rotted, and so we're going to have to try to replace it, which is hard to find a replacement that matches it.
So again, two very different design styles available, same era, but one's, you know, MCM and one is, I don't even know what you would call that, to be honest with you. I don't know what that style would be, but it's just sort of more traditional, I guess. And then the last one out of here, let's see. So, you know, this is 1960, but those are not MCM sofas.
Yeah.
A lot of
granny-tastic right there.
Granny, yeah. So again, and this is just kind of real world examples of what people would want in their home. So just because something was a design trend, you know, in that era doesn't mean everybody liked it or wanted it. So not everything that was made in the 50s and 60s could be considered mid-century modern. Because it's not modern. You're missing the modern part. You've got the mid-century part, but it's not the modern or modernism design style.
Which is that sleek, hard line.
Right. Those were those elements I was talking about, the geometry and, you know, not a lot of frills going on.
So I had a piece. This is the piece I was going to ask you about.
Yeah.
Now I haven't cleaned this, y'all. I haven't cleaned it, and I don't know.
Make yourself big so I can see it.
Hold on, I don't know how to do that. Give me a second.
There you go.
So I was showing this to Jaimie a minute ago before we got on, and I haven't cleaned it or anything. I just got it. And it was something that I only looked at because I'm trying to train the eye and then get it and learn something about it. Two reasons that I picked this up. Design, it reminded me of barware. That's one of the reasons. It has, now that's a lot of design for mid-century modern though, right?
I mean, it is, but you know, it's one. It's one, and from a distance, it looks like a circle.
It is a
So,
circle.
like getting up close to it, you see the detail, but from
Yeah.
far away, it kind of just looks like a circle. And there's not
But
like a ton of them.
it was the black and the gold.
Yeah.
And then the design of the basin piece right here.
Yeah.
That's, still got that A line, and in dresses, we call that the A
Yeah.
line. The other thing that so I believe that this is like a coffee pot, because
Yeah.
it is in like 4, 6, and 8 cups, but
Yeah.
it says David Douglas flame proof, right? I don't know if y'all are going to be able to see that. Do you see that?
Yeah.
But it's signed David Douglas. And I mean, all of the working pieces are there. It's pretty good. I mean, it has a few little spots. So would this be considered mid-century modern?
Definitely. Definitely. Okay. And look at the shape of the handle too. See how geometric and sort of that looks like the leg of a rocket, you know? And then you've got gold and black, definitely mid-century modern colors, those gold horizontal bands.
These, yeah.
Just, there's just a few. It's not over the top. And people collect those. There's people who collect just coffee crafts. And there's starbursts on it and all sorts of different kinds.
I did run some comps on it, and for what I could pick it up for, it was Thrifting Thursday, y'all, at one of my good spots that I go to. And if you have bought one of the bag, it benefits the Women's Center. That's another reason that I thrift there. And on Thursday, anything you can get in your bag is 50% off, and you can Jenga it as much as you want. I mean, as long as you can get the bag on the counter and then stack everything off, they give you 50% off. I didn't find a whole bunch, but this was marked at $5. So I ended up paying $2.50 for this.
That's a great deal. Great deal.
And I mean, it'll go in my booth because, Chicken Little doesn't like to ship a whole bunch of glass stuff, but it'll go in the booth. I don't foresee. I had another one of those stainless steel. I think it was mid-century modern, the stainless steel tea kettles.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It was kind of had this shape, but it was all metal. That didn't stay. I think it was there 5 days. And sold. So that's the kind of stuff that I was like, you know what, I'm gonna purposefully start looking at different things, and also requires you to research a little bit, and that's how you learn too.
Definitely.
So is wood, so like these pieces, this was another piece. This is made in the Philippines. It's not marked monkey pot or anything. But so when I'm looking at design, like when I was in that booth yesterday, sometimes it's just basic wood. It is not a knotty pine. It is not intricate detail, but it does have some curvature in it. And I wasn't sure if would it need to be like all of this style versus this style.
Well, see, that's getting into sort of like another subsect, which would be tiki.
Yeah.
Because there's, like you think of tiki bars, there's definitely a lot more going on when you get into like a tiki decor. You think of Hawaiian prints and things like that. So it is a little bit more decorative. But I would think that people who have a mid-century modern decor in their home would still look at that and consider it an MCM design, because it is just 3 large sections. It's not super geometric, but it's also not super overly decorative either.
Yeah, and the wood pattern is very simple. It's
the wood is very smooth and very sleek. So I think it would totally.
It would go with.
It would go with it. Would a hardcore collector call that mid-century modern? I don't know. But tiki, mid-century modern, those would all be terms that would work for it,
Now, I picked this up solely for the purpose to, at shows, display brooches.
Oh, beautiful.
I just couldn't find a really good way that was not cumbersome. I've tried a couple of different ways for people. And I thought, putting some, either putting some beans or something, or to let the colors pop against it, or just laying them out, because some of them are kind of big. on the table, they would be able to touch and feel. They're not in plastic bags. They're not,
Yeah.
attached to something that was taller. So that's the only reason that I picked that up. And I got that for $2.
And I think that's really pretty too. The wood tone is really pretty. The color of it is very warm. So it would look really good with brooches all over it.
And then if you put Old English on that, it will hide all those scratches.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
We do that to restore furniture all the time. People are like, oh, it has a big scratch on it. Just keep adding that Old English, and those little scratches and stuff like that it just refurbishes and re-oils the natural wood. So this, I wanted to ask about this color.
Am I breaking up or are you breaking up? Because it's getting choppy for me.
I don't know. Y'all tell me. It could be mine.
Yeah.
Because Comcast.
Okay.
Don't get me started about Comcast, y'all. Is it better?
Let me see if that helps things.
Hold on. Now you're frozen. Does everybody see me or her?
Maybe it's me.
All right. Yeah, you're frozen on my end, but I think you're better now.
Okay. I was just switching my internet.
Carrie says it's you.
It's me?
Yeah. Did somebody drive by with Wi-Fi? Because that's what happens here. If anybody else in the neighborhood has Wi-Fi on, holy cow, we won't do it.
Well, my kids are home now, so they're probably using the bandwidth.
So I wanted to ask about these types of colors and this design. Now, this wasn't Treasure Craft, it is glaze, but I think it's California.
I mean, because it looks like it, yeah.
But see these colors?
Yeah.
Now I can't tell if this is 70s because it's so it's busier than what you've described today.
Right.
So
I
to
would
me,
say
this is
it
70s
could be late 60s maybe, because that's when things started sort of transitioning into that. It's got sort of like that lava glaze inside, those reds and things. So yeah. I would say it's even sort of getting into like a tiki look. Treasure Craft kind of had a lot of that tiki look too, with that certain type of glaze.
And so now I think
it's an ashtray, so that fits in. Ashtrays just in general fit in with that motif too. So
now when I see this and having heard what you said today, it's almost too busy. So it kind of goes towards the end, almost pushing that 70s.
Yeah. That's what I would say too. And it's shaped more like a leaf than
and see it has this little instead of just being straight.
Right.
Like even these, though there's curvature, it's straight.
It's a little straighter, right? Exactly.
Yeah. So this with the I don't know what you would call that. What do you call that? Where it's waved almost? Scallop. Yeah. So that's what kind of makes me now be able to tell a little bit of the difference. So
yeah. And a lot of MCM collectors also collect that kind of stuff too. Some people are more early MCM and want everything to look like Frank Lloyd Wright house. Some people are more of like kitschy and tiki and getting into sort of the mod 70s sort of colors and looks. So I think that's one of the reasons why people just sort of throw around the MCM label. What I don't want people to do is call like something at Target today MCM.
Yeah.
And you see here, I see that a lot where even like IKEA furniture, yes, it has that sleek look, but you have to call it MCM style or MCM
because there's no time period that's mid-water.
You can't call something that was made yesterday MCM.
Yeah.
Because it's not actually made in the mid-century. It is referring to an era. So, and like you wouldn't call something brand new Art Deco either, because even though that's just sort of a design term, we know that true Art Deco was earlier. It's not now. Like Art Deco was 30s in that era. pre MCM. And so if you say, you know, here's a duster, here's an Art Deco vase, people are going to think, oh, that must be from the 30s. But it's almost a little deceitful to say this piece of furniture that I bought at Target last year is MCM, because people are going to hear that and collectors are going to think, oh, well, so it must be from the 50s or 60s.
Not from Target.
but it's not, because it's new. So you can have MCM style stuff that looks like it's from that era, and what the design style looked like back then, but it's a new piece. So you have to just really call it MCM style instead of, you know, people do just sort of throw that term around a lot.
I mean, it's almost kind of like where you get, we call it a Fucci purse versus a Gucci purse, you know, or something like that. It's the style of a Gucci,
yeah,
but was made, you know, 3 weeks ago, or now 3 years ago, and now just came over. So
right.
it's the same style, but it's definitely not the same make.
Right.
They're even replicating on purses now. They're going back to replicate old style with some of these, just because it's coming back in, you know.
Yeah.
And they've always done that with pageant. We call them pageant or evening gown purses. They've always tried, even now, they'll replicate that beaded style. And you can tell whether it's the beadwork is done and then applied, or if the beadwork is actually hand applied. So I learned that I had an actual little zipper pouch that had a beaded butterfly on it. And I was like, oh, you know, it probably came from Target or whatever. And then it said it was made in India. So I was showing a friend of mine. She goes, no, you can. She is from India. And she said, it's all hand beaded. Now, these are, they were like the sequins. So they're not, they're plastic. They're the sequins that we use. And that's what they use to make the flowers on it. But the beads, you can tell, are individually stitched, because you see a piece of thread that goes around each one. And they are like minute. And I was like,
that's, oh my gosh, you know, higher quality then, I'm sure.
Carrie said, if you call something from Target MCM, we can't be friends any longer.
Right. Yeah.
It's true. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions? I mean, you'd have to ask Jaimie, because I don't know. So if you have any questions or anything, now's your chance to ask. If you're watching this on the replay, put it in the comments. I'll share those with Jaimie, because I will not be able to answer them. Jaimie has a wonderful channel here on YouTube, and she also posts on Instagram sometime. It's kind of a sneak peek to her preview. Now, did you just do that debut? Was it a premiere or a live where you and Blake went? I was at Round Top. Was that yesterday?
Yeah, we went live. It was we went live on Thursday. It was my birthday.
Well, happy belated birthday.
Thank you. And Blake's birthday is the day after mine. So we were sort of celebrating both of our birthdays and drinking way too much wine. And
you can do what you want.
Talking about our upcoming road trip, because we are in April, mid-April, we're taking almost 2 weeks and going to Missouri and Iowa, where Blake has some family.
Right.
So we're looking for suggestions of places to sort of stop on the way. And I am going to go visit Fatbird Finds, Laura and Mary Beth too, because I can't be that close to them and then not go see them, you know. So we're going to be in that area. And then, of course, everything in between California and there. So we were going on
a long way. That's a long way.
We like road trips, though. I love being on the road. That's like my favorite. So
I'm one of those girls that says, pick me up at the airport, and then I'll have a whole agenda of where to go. But that whole driving in between, I'm like, no, I have to get out.
I know a lot of people are like that. And I'm like, I could live in an RV and be perfectly content just being on the road all the time.
Yeah, that's most of my friends. And I'm like, just let me know which airport is closest. I'll rent a car and I'll meet you there. So make sure you check out Jaimie's channel. She's over here. It is a Mid-Century Wasted. She has the best intro ever. She's got such a great radio voice too. Between you and Katie, y'all have some great radio voices. This is one question coming in from Antiques Agenda. Do you search for pieces for yourself more in person at the flea market or online eBay?
For myself, still more in person because I am still looking for a bargain most of the time. You know, like I said, out here in California, the mid-century modern stuff is very expensive, very trendy, very hot, and so I'm still looking for deals. Now, I did start sort of collecting when I said I bought this on eBay, this little vase here. I found, this is Sasha Brastoff is the designer of it. I didn't show that part. So that's kind of like a Georges Briard or one of those designers that would be from that era, but it was like an artist, but then also a designer. I found a bigger, I don't know what you would call a planter or pot or something. And I found it at a yard sale out here for really cheap. And then it sort of sparked a collection because I liked it so much. And I started looking at the other stuff that he had made. So then I went ahead and I sprung for that one because I fell in love with it when I was researching the designer on eBay. But for the most part, I source for myself and for reselling in person, flea markets and yard sales and stuff.
Yeah, I like when she goes places and you've met up with several people.
Yeah.
And that was fun. It's always fun to get to meet people that you've been chatting with and you didn't even know they lived like 40 minutes from you or 30 minutes from you. And it's really fun to get together and shop with people who are interested in shopping, you know.
Yeah.
Like you can't always take your sibling or your parent or your husband or partner because they're like, how much longer? And do you have to touch everything? Well, yes, I do.
Yes, every single thing.
Everything.
Well, and even Blake, my husband, he's into it too. He's into more of records and audio.
Right.
He's an audiophile kind of person. So he does like going out and shopping, but he gets impatient with me because I'm more into a lot more stuff than he is. So I have to look at every little thing and touch every little thing. And he'll just beeline it through a store and try to find the audio stuff and ignore everything else. And I'm like, well, wait. Look at this little tiny thing over here.
Yeah,
So
this
he's always
cat way over there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I saw a heart with a wig. I don't know what to tell you. That's that. By this time, you know, I was tired. We walked 2 fields, you know, and so it was just the big pieces. And when I looked at it and I did a double take and I was like, what even has glasses on? And she's like, oh, I saw a cat. I'm like, yeah, I'm past. It's going to have to be blatant at this point, you know, because I should have probably stopped and ate. But this has been absolutely wonderful. I have taken notes. My little notepad is filled up over here. And I did. I mean, one thing I immediately took away was looking at the lines in those 2 pieces. I would have probably said this is, you know, I would have probably said this is kind of mid-century modern, although I was like, is it more 70s? Because it's getting into that funky kind of style is what I call it.
Definitely.
Cool, but a little bit more funky. So make sure that you're checking out Jaimie's channel and her Instagram. We both love to have you subscribe to our channels. If you're new to us, thank you so much for coming into the chat today, for adding to the chat. This was great, for asking questions. I'd love to do one about Pyrex because I am finding Pyrex like you would not believe and know. Well, I'm learning a little bit about it now because I'm having to research it to actually resell it. It's not something that I use. I'm a pottery bowl kind of girl more. And we use like the big pottery bowls like back home where they were just spun more. And so the designs I'm learning about and the pieces that go with them, because you see a piece of Pyrex and a lot of times they were sold with pieces. Either it came with a lid or it came in an insert. I currently have a silver piece that's a fish. And it's a Pyrex holder, but it holds as a glass piece. Well, I
Oh,
didn't
okay.
know that. I liked it because it was a fish, and I thought, well, yeah, you could put something down in there, but it actually came as a set.
Oh,
So I'm
okay.
learning a
Yeah.
lot
Yep.
about that. That's my next little learn. So because it's a lot of people still are using Pyrex,
Yeah. Yep.
so
And
that's
talk
fun.
about something that's got a lot of value. Certain pieces
Gosh.
are mind-boggling.
Yes. I didn't really know that until I came across it was a black with white snowflakes.
Oh, yeah.
And I found it. It was actually in a big group. Oh my gosh, I got three kind of bowls for like $6, Pyrex bowls, and then two others were like $2.99 each. And I was like, Pyrex, I'll learn from it. Hauled it, and there was like 4 emails, and I was like, well, what is so important about this
Yeah.
black and white? I mean, I don't really see it that
Yeah,
often,
so it's
but
just a little more rare, a little
yeah.
more harder to find, I guess. Yeah.
But you asked me about that old type of furniture and how to restore that,
Yeah.
or some other things. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
me. I mean, I can tell you in a heartbeat how to restore, whether you to restore or to flip something,
Uh-huh.
whether it's what it's going to take to shore it up, and make it right again. But I am learning about this kind of stuff.
And
So,
I wouldn't
and,
know the first thing about that too. So
yeah,
you
and
have your own
what paint
special set
will
of
yeah,
skills.
what paint will actually work best with different kinds of wood,
Oh,
and
yeah.
how to treat it and how to keep it from peeling and bubbling up on you and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So that's why I'm reaching out to people like you, Jaimie, to help me learn. And
Yeah.
I really appreciate you taking the time
Well,
to
I
come.
appreciate you inviting me. I didn't really consider myself much of an expert on anything, but
Yes, you are. Congratulations.
thanks.
And I believe that, are you on tomorrow night, Vintage Rescue
I
Squad?
am. Yes, I'm going to be. I think it's on Misty's channel, if I'm not mistaken. Thrifter, Junker, Vintage Hunter, or
You're
it's
on
on
with
Michael's
Daniel.
channel. It's one of the two, but I believe it's on Misty's. But
I think you're on with Daniel
I'm going to be on
tomorrow.
with Daniel, so we're going to have a fun time. I have a
That
feeling.
will be so much fun. So
Yeah.
Vintage Rescue Squad, let me look it up real quick. It's going to be, I think it's on her channel. Yes, it's on
Thought so.
Misty's
Yeah.
channel. So if you're not on Instagram, this is what it looks like. This is the Instagram promotion for that. But Daniel from Tacky Is Me and Jaimie will be on Vintage Rescue Squad. I've had the absolute honor of being on, and it's a lot of fun.
It's fun, yeah.
Yeah.
And you
It's a
never know
lot.
where the conversation's going to go, too. What we're going to be
You
dishing about.
absolutely do not, but
Yeah.
it's okay. And it's fun because they are very, very knowledgeable, especially
Yes.
about reselling and things.
Yes.
And I know you occasionally do some live sales.
Yeah, very
Here and there.
occasionally, here and there. And, it's because my schedule, I'm a stay-at-home mom, so my kids are always here and shuttling them to and from school and baseball and all of that. So it's a scheduling thing more than anything and then finding a place in the actual schedule, the live sales schedule where there's an opening and you're
Right.
not doubling up against 5 other sellers. It's a little hard. So I do a lot of Instagram sales, just sort of the drop sales. They're just in my feed. I sell brooches that way mostly.
Yeah, I saw your lots. And if y'all haven't seen that,
Yeah.
she'll put pictures and numbers by each.
Yeah.
And then
You just
she'll put it
claim
in the
it in the
description.
comments. And that's easy for me because I can do that whenever. I don't have to be live with a million, interruptions with kids coming in and stuff like that. It could be crazy. But and then I'm on eBay and Etsy too. So I do sell online that way.
And are they under Mid-Century Wasted on those
They are.
2 platforms?
Yeah. And if you're on my Instagram, I have links to them in my little Instagram bio or under every video that I post on YouTube. I have links to all of that too.
Well, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
again,
you.
y'all. Thank y'all for staying in and hanging in there while I learn some stuff. And y'all make sure that you catch, let's see, I don't even know what's next for me other than tomorrow I go to work. Let's see. I have videos every Tuesday and Friday. I have my big Easter sale coming this Thursday at 5 p.m. Central Time because I'm in Texas, y'all. And then next Saturday, go to Dolores's channel. Dolores was in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
She has hit 500 subscribers and she's doing a giveaway. And so Daniel and I will be there. She's going to have me run that little spinny wheel thing.
Awesome.
I'm like, great, put it out on me. And then next Sunday, I am going to be with Tippy Winks Vintage, Christy.
Oh, how fun.
I finally got to meet up with her. She had a lot going on, but we finally got to meet up and we went shopping. So the shop along will drop on that Friday, and then we'll show you what we got live on next Sunday. So there's a lot coming up. Make sure that you're checking out the channels and Instagram. And until next time, y'all stay pretty and be sweet. Bye, y'all. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.